Okay, so we are back in Pirkei Avot, and we are in chapter 4. And I'm going to say in this version, it's four, verse 4, and I'm not sure what it is in your version over there, but uh, it's Rabbi Levitas Ish Yavne. So the Levitas of Yavne, who said, "Ma'od ma'od haveshafal ruach." Very, very much a person should be, very, very much a person should be humble of spirit. So, ma'od ma'od, and it's a double, right? Very, very. A person should be very, very humble of spirit. V'tikvat enosh rima, for the end of a person, the end of a person is rima, is the worm, right? That, you should be humble because, you're the thing that we're most proud of, right? I mean, most of us carry our pride in our, material accomplishments and who we are in this world, and kind of in this thing that we carry around with us all the time. Um, and and that's going to end up in the ground and it's going to be consumed by worms and by bacteria and the other various cooties of the earth and broken down into its constituents. Um, so that's a good source of humility. He uses the word, remember always this thing about names of human beings comes up again. Cooties of the Earth. That's actually going to be the name of my new rock band, Cooties of the Earth. Um, so here there are many different words for human being, as I said before, and enosh, right, is another kind of is another one that's usually used to refer to somebody who's kind of a higher standard of human being. So even if you are a fancy human being, even if you are like of the best human beings, well, uh, your result is that you are going to be consumed by the cooties of the earth. So, good reason to be humble. There's a nice expression for humble, shafal ruach, meaning having a lowly spirit, having a lowly spirit. Okay, thoughts before we move to the next one? Nobody can argue with humility. I think one of the things about Pirkei Avot that strikes me, and this is something that Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto says in the introduction to his book, Misilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just. He says, "Listen, don't expect to read my book, and find something new here. Okay, I'm not the goal here is not to introduce you to anything new, but really to just remind you of things that you've already known or you've known from other places. And so this is like normal wisdom, right? And I think that if you were a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu or a Buddhist and you're reading Pirkei Avot, you're going to go, yeah, it makes perfect sense, right? Um, it doesn't require it's not something necessarily new, right? The Buddhists in there's a beautiful Buddhist meditation manual called the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, and in it there's like these all these meditations on the rotting of the body, right? And it talks about, sit and you meditate on the kudis of the earth consuming the body so that you can come to that humility. So this is, I think, a pretty common idea.
Isn't there someplace else where it says that you shouldn't be to get too arrogant because your beginning is a droplet and
Oh
your
yes,
end?
yeah, we'll get there. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I always love that.
Yeah, tipa sarucha, right? You're from a fetid drop. That was my favorite translation. Fetid. That's not a word I've ever heard anyplace else, but it's a great word. Yeah, right. I mean, this is from where do you come from? You come from a fetid drop. Where do you go? Okay. Okay. Lenny is here. Larry is here, rather. Welcome to Larry.
Hi.
Okay. And with Larry comes Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka Omer, Kol hamechal Hashem shemayim baseter. It says everybody who profanes the name of God in secret, nifraim mimenu begalui, says they will be punished in public. So that's a rough one. Echad shogeg, echad mezid b'chilul Hashem, and says when it comes to chilul Hashem, when it comes to profaning the name of God, it's the same whether you did it inadvertently or deliberately. There's no distinction there. Now this is so when I say profaning the name of God, this is a very particular concept. Um, so profaning the name of God means giving God a bad reputation through your actions. So, so if, for example, right? So if, for example, you're a religious Jew, right? And you're wearing a kippah, and you've got your tzitzit out, and you've got your beard or whatever, and you're in the supermarket, and you know, and the lady behind you, the lady in front of you rather, is taking a long time, and you go, could you please hurry up already? So, I mean, you're just expressing a little bit of impatience and so on, but the people around you are going to see that and go, oh my God, what a horrible Jewish man. Like this is what they call religious. This is what their God is all about. This is like this. They think this is religious behavior. They think, right? So that could be, right? That could be profaning the name of God in public because you're giving the impression that somehow or another this this behavior is somehow improved, or you're kind of giving a bad impression about God, right? So profaning the name of God. So something that it says here that so what you do in private, okay, what you do in private, you shouldn't think it's going to die in private. You shouldn't think that it's going to die in private, but but you may actually get punished for it in public, right? So you shouldn't consider that just because I do something in private, it's okay. And also to realize though that if you do something bad in public, it does have more impact than if you do it in private, right? Because then it can also be a chilul Hashem, right? Then it can also be there can also be a profanation of the profaning God's name, right? So if you have a choice between doing something in private or doing something in public, doing something bad, better do it in private. But don't think that doing it in private is gonna spare you from punishment. It's not, and then the punishment could be in public. So the bottom line is don't do it. That's the bottom line. Don't do it. Okay. Thoughts?
From a practical perspective, I agree with this. If nothing else, things that you think are private may very well not be may not be as private as you think. And
Especially
furthermore,
now.
when you behave when you behave crudely in private, if nothing else, it has a coarsening effect on your own character that could result in your being less good in public as well. That said, the other thing I'm wondering about is how does this fit in with the idea of mida keneged mida, that one's punishment is somehow suited to one's crime? It seems like, well, I did this in private, so my punishment should be private.
Or I did this in private with the mistaken belief that I am unseen. And so the mida connected mida is for me to realize that I am seen.
Right.
If
True,
that
you're
makes
always given, God's omniscience.
right. So I'm now kind of, and I was and mida connected mida, I was afraid, I was showing fear of human beings, but I wasn't showing fear of God. And there's the whole story about the difference between in the Gemara. See, I count on Nathan to find out these things for me where this is, but there's a difference between a between A ganav and a
Between a thief and a burglar?
yeah, between the thief and the burglar, but I can't remember which is which. So thief and the burglar. So the thief is somebody who goes and says stick him up, right? Stick him up and give me your money. Okay? And the burglar is the one who sneaks around in the night and steals from you. So the Gemara says which one of these is better, right? So the thief is better than the burglar because the thief is not afraid of man and not afraid of God. Okay? As opposed to the burglar who's not afraid of God but is afraid of man, right? Trying to avoid detection by human beings, right? Um, so the person who does something in public is in a certain sense, right, maybe better than the person who does something in private because that person, thinks that maybe God can't see them or right, thinks that maybe God doesn't see them.
I think we also have kind of an issue with just I guess trolls on the internet. You know, people think that they're being discreet or they're behind a screen, and I'm always confused by
Yeah.
that because you are publishing yourself.
Yes.
You're published. I mean, people can take screenshots of everything. I just
Yeah.
have no idea why. Anyway,
Yes,
that's
I mean privacy. I mean the idea that you're doing anything in private right now is, I mean, that in my neighborhood they now have a new camera. They have a flock camera, okay, which is remarkable. It can do. Of course, it takes pictures of everybody's license plate, so it keeps track of who's passing by and when, and it also can do facial recognition, right? So, I mean, there's no privacy anymore. So just forget about that, right? With the door cameras and this cameras and those cameras and if you live in London, we have nobody here from London, I don't think. But if you lived in London, even more so because in London there's no such thing as privacy. There's cameras everywhere. Okay, Rabbi Ishmael. But wait a second. How is it possible there was a Rabbi Ishmael? Yes, there was. Ishmael used to be a fairly, it seems to have been a fairly common Jewish name before the 7th century. And so here we are, Rabbi Ishmael Beno, who was the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. So Rabbi Ishmael, said, Halomed al manat lamed, masfik biyado lemud lamed. He says a person who learns in order to teach, he'll be given the opportunity to learn and to teach. He says, "Zahalomed amanad la'asot," but and a person who learns in order to do, maspikin biyadon lamod lamed lishmor la'asot. He says he'll be given the opportunity to learn, to teach, to keep, and to keep, or to observe and to do. Okay, so if you're studying in order to teach, okay, you'll have that opportunity. But a person who intends to do, intends to put something into practice, right, takes it out of the academic realm, and intends to practice, they'll be able to learn it, they'll be able to teach it, they'll be able to um, retain it, and they'll be able to do it. So the best thing to do is always to learn for the sake of doing. Rabbi Nachman said about his own writing. He said that the main thing to do when anything that somebody asked him, he was actually during his lifetime he was preparing the lessons that would later become the Likutei Moran. And somebody asked him, like, what are we supposed to do with this? He said, if he says, it says, make an action plan out of it, right? Find something to do, right? Whatever it is that you learn, okay, there are basically two important things to do. One is to make it into prayer, and the other is to translate it into action. Okay, I don't know who this person is, but I'm very excited to have them. Welcome, Dr. Richardson, Mr. Richardson. Welcome back. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Um, so so ultimately we should be learning in order to put into practice, right? There's no, if we do learn for the academic purpose, right, in order to be able to teach, very good, then we'll be able to teach. But if we study in order to in order to be able to do, then we'll be able to teach and we'll be able to put it into practice. Okay, so thoughts there? Okay, let me put this in the, okay. We're in chapter 4 of Pirkei Avot, and there's a link in the chat there if you need the thing. And if anybody's using the Sefaria, what mission are we up to? Anybody know the number? Okay, well, we're up to Rabbi Tzadok. This is one of the most ill-used um, of the Mishnayot. Okay, Rabbi Tzadok Omer, Al tifrosh min hatzibur, Al tifrosh. Don't separate yourself from the community. Now, this is a tough one. Um, it's used in lots and lots of different contexts um, because it's also a um, it's a little on the ambiguous side because the question is who is the tzibur? So tzibur generally means a community. That there's a cute little acronym that says Tzibor consists of tzaddikim, benonim, and rishayim, of righteous people, middle people, and evil people, right? Any community has good people, people in the middle and people who are not so good. He says, Al tifrosh min hatzibor, don't separate yourself from the community, even though the community, contains some negative elements. So it's often used as a way to shut somebody up, right? So if you if you have an opinion that other people don't like, and it's not kind of conforming with the community, al tifrosh min hatzibor, right? Don't separate yourself from the community. Don't have an opinion outside the community. I would say that's a misuse. I would say that's a pretty bad misuse of the Mishnah, but it's used that way all the time. Um, but that you should, not distance yourself um, from the community, I think makes a lot of sense. Um, let's see if it connects to the other parts of the Mishnah. So al tifresh min hatzibur, don't separate yourself from the community. Ve'al tas atzmecha ka'orchei hadayanim. He says when you're sitting, this is probably referring to judges, but again,
Excuse me,
yeah,
I'm com I'm completely lost because in Sfaria we have the
yeah,
thing about teaching, learning, blah blah blah.
yeah.
Then it says Rabbi Tadok says, "Do not make a crown for self-exaltation, nor a spade with which to dig." So what you're saying is very familiar, but it's not directly doesn't directly follow.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. They
We
didn't.
have
He didn't say we didn't get al top. It doesn't say al top. It doesn't say al tifresh min hatzibur.
yeah. I
Doesn't
mean,
say.
according to Sfaria, we're up to
Okay, so
Rabbi
that's so.
Omer
Okay,
Alta Sem Atara.
okay, that's very interesting. Okay, I don't know why that is. I don't know.
Somebody,
I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. Well, okay. I'm gonna trust the folks at Corin more than I trust Safaria. So here, okay. So we're gonna get to the spade. We're gonna get to the spade in a second. Okay. So so there's there's kind of like two pieces of the Mishnah. So the first piece of the Mishnah was don't separate yourself from the community. The second is don't act like a lawyer, right? When you're among the dayanim. So when you're among the judges, don't act like a lawyer. Your job is to judge. Your job is not to defend one side of the other. Um, how these two are connected, because clearly al va'al, and don't do this don't do this and don't do this. So that vav, right, is an and. So the two of them seem to be connected. Um, so I don't know. I have to think about it. I'm not sure exactly why they're connected, um, except maybe uh, that when you because it doesn't. So it says. It doesn't actually say when acting as a judge, but in general, don't act like a lawyer. So maybe the idea is that part of Altifresh means one of the things about not separating yourself from the community is not taking sides,
Or
right?
not
Is not
having convictions, maybe
no, I'm
like
not
a
saying not necessarily not having convictions, but being careful about, accusing or defending other people, right? I mean, to be a careful judge and to sort of see where things are rather than kind of uh, defaulting to
I,
some position based on your alliances, right? I mean, why is it, the lawyer defends the client, right? Because they get paid, or they're forward on the line because, they have some connection. Yeah, Larry, help me, Larry.
um, sure. Also, Yonasan has been lifting his hand. I don't think he knows about the
Oh, I'm sorry.
raise icon thing. So perhaps he
Okay,
I
should go
guess I
first.
don't.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where the raise hand icon is, but anyway, you go first, Larry. You got your hand up there.
Okay. Um, Perhaps I'm being too influenced by taking a timeless text and reading it for contemporary. But in context, don't separate yourself from the community reminds me of combined with don't be an advocate, which is how I would translate it rather than lawyer, or how I've seen it translated
Hmm.
rather than lawyer specifically. Is a caution. As I look around today, I see many of my communities being split up as people saying, he's not my president, or these people don't speak for me, and or
Right.
and even I can't be with somebody who doesn't do this. I read articles. I'm not in that community myself, but I read articles in the dating community about people, who won't date people who support the opposite political party or things like that. So don't separate yourself from the community in combination with says you can keep disagreements, but this disagree, possibly even disagree passionately, but don't be so quick to be so passionate about it to say no, this person is not in fact my brother. I have no obligation to love this person. He's not my neighbor because he and I disagree over politics,
Right.
perhaps. And then don't be an advocate when you're a judge, uh, which I find a little bit difficult because of the fact that there are no there are no formal, there's no equivalent to prosecuting and defending attorney in Beit Din in principle. But nonetheless, the point is that as a judge, you shouldn't say, okay, this guy is obviously right, or I agree with this person's position, so I'm going, but he's doing a terrible job, so I'm going to help him along a little bit, give him some hints as to what the perhaps the proper legal terminology is, or just in general help this person, and saying no, don't do that. If you're a judge, you have to stay impartial. You can't let your feelings influence your behavior towards the respective people, the respective defendant and plaintiff or whatever.
Well, you don't. Well, it's interesting. At least in contemporary based in, you do have attorneys, but you only have defense attorneys. You have defense attorneys.
Okay.
Right. So you do have there are people who are, a person who's like a Tana, a person whose job is to shape your story, is to shape your story in order to tell um, a halachic story, if that makes sense, right? So their job is to take your story and kind of reframe it into the terms of Jewish law. And so that certainly does exist. today. In any case, that people who do that, whose job it is to kind of, but the temptation is for all of us is, when we hear, two sides, to side with one side and then never hear what the other side has to say. And that makes it very hard to live in a tzibor. It makes it very hard to live in a community. And as you rightly said, I can't tell you how many times over the past couple of years, people have just kind of left, they kind of left synagogue or left because they had some interaction with somebody or they had something and they just kind of, went on their way because they chose not to live in community if everybody in the community didn't think alike, which is sad. Okay, now we get to the Torah. Now we get to the Torah. It says, "Ve'al taseh atara litgadel ba, v'lo kardom." That sounds like kardom. Sounds like it must be. I wonder if that's a Greek word. L'chpor ba says, "Don't use it as a crown for self-glorification or a spade with which to dig." Right? Don't use it as a tool. Right? Don't use your Torah. Don't as a my rabbi uh, applied this when we went shopping. And we went shopping one day, and all the shopkeepers wanted to give him a discount, right? Every shopkeeper wanted to give him a discount because he was a rabbi, and he was an old man, and they knew he wasn't particularly wealthy, and you know, so he would come and they would try to give him things for free, so he would go and he'd buy, get some bread and cake and whatever else, right? And they go, no, no, Rabbi, you don't have to pay. No, don't worry, please. It's on us. And he would say, no, 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 I have to pay. And so afterward, he explained to me, he says, because this is not a spade to dig with, right? I'm not, I don't want to get benefits, right? I'm not going to get, I don't want to get benefit from my Torah that way. Okay, this is not, what, there's no atarai here, there's no crown, right? I'm not a king. I once wanted to celebrate his birthday, and he said to me, he says, "Do you see a crown here?" I said, "No." And he says, "Okay, if I'm a king, you can celebrate my birthday, but until then, you don't celebrate my birthday. So don't make yourself into something just because you've learned Torah." This is what Hillel used to say. So this is interesting, a little bit of editing here, right? Um, oh, I forgot, Yonasan. You had something to say, and I completely lost you again. Okay, you gotta learn how to raise that hand. Go ahead, Yonasan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know where it is on the keyboard. Um, I was only going to say the thing about not cutting off from the community is I get it literally all the time because I live where there is no Jewish community. However, I really don't think I'm cut off as much as maybe some people who live in the city and never do anything connected to the community. I
Yeah.
was just going to throw that out there,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's what I get it quoted at me all the time. You're
right.
cutting yourself off from the community. I don't think so. I'm right here with other Jews, and physically, I'm not, in the
Right.
city anymore, but I'm still connected. The other thing about the judge thing, Rabbi Moshe Adler, who may he rest in peace, who was the Hillel rabbi at the University of Minnesota back in the 70s and early 80s, he once said it like something like this. He said, "Why don't we call God the lawyer of the universe? We call him the judge of the universe." Okay. And he said, because think, when you hire a lawyer, he goes in, you want to hire a lawyer to look over your business, you're hiring him to look at every little nitpicky little thing that could get you here, that could get you there, yada, yada, yada. When you're a judge, you have to take into consideration more than just all the little rules and regs. You have to take into consideration the person who is before you you know I mean, if this is a teenage kid who stole something from a store, that's going to be very different than some guy who points a gun and steals something from a store you know and so you got to weigh circumstances when you judge and sentence somebody as a judge. And so God is the judge of the universe because he takes into consideration our individual circumstances and doesn't act like a lawyer. That's in the name of Rabbi Moshe Adler.
Very nice. Well, the judge also is out for truth, right? And that's not the lawyer's job, right? The lawyer's job is to get you offer to prosecute you. It's not necessarily to get to truth. David, do you have your hand up, or were you just experimenting?
I was actually just experimenting. It turns out that Alt Y will raise your hand in Zoom if you're on Windows, and Option Y will raise your hand if you're on Mac.
Okay, so now you know. It's Alt Y or Option Y. There you go. Everybody's trying it out. Okay, everybody's trying it out. Is that hand actually raised, Kalen? Or are you just playing? Okay, she's just playing. Okay. And by the way, Kalen, if people are giving you money when you're sitting on the sidewalk,
I must seem like a vagrant.
you
People hand
need to
me money more
change.
often than
Yeah, you need
not.
to
It's
change your
really
wardrobe.
it's the
Just
skateboard. It's the
like,
skateboard.
yeah, it's the skateboard that does.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sure you will figure it out. Okay. So don't use as a crown. Uh, okay. So now he says Hitler used to say he's an interesting thing here because we were in order before. Now we're not in order anymore. He said, oh, you mentioned this thing of not using it as a tool, a spade to dig with. He says Hillel also talked about this crown of the Torah, right? So I'm going to add something about there. Kachai Hillel used to say, "Ishtamesh b'daga chalaf." I'm sorry, how. Oh, you're right. Something's not right here. Hold on a second. Okay. וכך היה הלל אומר. Okay. השתמש בתג החלף. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. This is the word taga, which is tag, which is related to the Arabic word taj, right? Like the Taj Mahal, right? Means a crown. Okay. So taga is an Aramaic word. So that's why I got confused because all of a sudden we switched into Aramaic. The ishtamash b'taga khalaf. Okay. That's why I got confused. Okay. So if a person who makes a worldly use of the crown, this is Vahalamata. Kol hanachiyam divrei Torah notel chayav min olam. Okay. Okay. So one yishtamesh b'taga chalav. So a person who uses the the crown of the Torah, chalav. Chalav. Halamata. From this. Oh, I see. Hishamesh bataga. So he's okay. So okay. So literally means a person who makes use of the crown, chalaf, they will fade away. They'll it's like vanish, like become, yeah, like they'll like vanish. And it says halamato. From this we learn kol hanechneb divrei Torah. Anybody who gets personal benefit, a person who gets personal benefit from words of Torah, notel chayab min olam, says they become he translates it here, okay, as risk destroying his life, but it's more than that. Notel chayav min olam. It's like he takes his own life from this world. It's like he removes his life force. He removes his life force in the world by taking personal benefit from the Torah. It's interesting because it could also mean, this is why I was a little confused. It could also mean uh, a person who enjoys Divrei Torah, right? It's also the word for like enjoying something, right? Taking pleasure in something. Um, but I think it can't really. I think it can't really. I think it can't really mean that. Um, yeah. By the way, David, when when we're my age and people start asking you, um, want to offer you change, it means you need a beard trim. That's usually what it means. It means a beard trim. Okay, so you don't want to use the Torah for your personal benefit. It's interesting. I feel like there might be some yeshivish types who actually would understand this means you're not supposed to enjoy it. Like, don't think there's this idea of Torah being geschmack, right? Of having a nice taste, right? Of being something that's enjoyable. And I think most people agree with that. But some people, the question is, well, what if you don't find it geschmack? What if you don't find it enjoyable? What if there's no pleasure in it? Well, you could say, right, a person who makes the pleasure of the Torah central, maybe you're sacrificing your life, because you're going to keep away from Torah because you don't find it pleasurable. No, you should continue to learn, even if you don't find it pleasurable. But here, I think it means probably the personal benefit. If you're making profit off of the Torah, and if you start doing, you know, Torah retreats in Bali that's my next plan, my next business plan, then, that would be bad. Larry, what do you think?
Yep. This is another example of how the immutable law mutates. And there certainly was a very long period of time in which this was read on its surface. You don't get paid for being a rabbi as late as Rambam.
Yes,
You know
true.
he worked full time as a doctor. I mean, Rambam's written account of his own schedule is just insane.
Yeah,
It's amazing how little how what great work he did with how little sleep he said he was getting.
right.
But in general, it was fairly late by Jewish standards, but before the idea, well, you could be a rabbi and be paid for that. I mean, even now there's some feeling that I'm not really being paid to make Piskei Halacha. I'm being paid to make sure that people show up for services and for arranging the administrative stuff. But I think, but the idea that the rabbinate is not a pay, is not a job for which one normally is paid, is not a current at all anymore. But it was for a long time.
Right. Getting paid, well, getting paid for teaching Torah for sure, right? For getting paid for learning Torah or teaching Torah is for sure still a question. I mean, as far as rabbis being paid, um, I don't think that was fully accepted until like the end of the 19th century, early 20th century. Most rabbis, even the United States, I mean, a lot of rabbis had other professions. Um, and but certainly in most places except Germany. Germany is one of the first to accept professional rabbis, but most places rabbis also had other sources of income. Um, and the idea that a person would be paid for rabbinut was problematic from a lot of perspectives because if you're functioning as a kind of religious judge, right, then you're beholden to all these people, right? And you don't want to be, obviously the parnasim, the people who are paying the bills, right, and who are paying your salary are going to get a better deal and going to get better rulings than people who are poor, and that doesn't work out so well. And as far as learning Torah is concerned, like then today you think, well, how is it possible that people, give Torah classes and they get paid? Right? How is that possible? And how is it possible that people get paid as Torah teachers? I also did. Um, so the answer to that is a little bit of mental gymnastics. So uh, so you don't get paid. So you don't get paid for teaching Torah. You get paid for not doing something else, right? So figure me, I could be a nuclear physicist because I don't know what I could be. I could be an investment banker. And so this is paying me, right, to not be an investment banker. So I used to get my salary and think, okay, this is the salary of an investment banker who I am not, and this is just paying me for my time, right? So it's basically like opportunity cost, right? So to be a yeshiva student or kollel, right, that's also opportunity cost because really the yeshiva student could go off and become an investment banker too, but instead they choose they're learning Torah.
Wait, can you imagine that you're Mark Zuckerberg and then you want to be paid in
That
billions?
would suck. Yeah, that's right. Say I should get paid like Mark Zuckerberg.
It's
Believe.
like man, whatever you imagine, that's what it's gonna taste like. So you imagine you're
Yeah,
Warren Buffett, reach
yeah,
for the stars.
yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I could have been a investment banker, but I got paid like a person who works in a dry cleaner shop. Okay. I once calculated my salary based on the amount of hours that I worked as a high school teacher, and
Just stop.
I made considerably less than minimum wage. So it was pretty depressing. Okay. Oh, we're done. I don't want to go. I want to go any further because we're past the 45 minutes of human, the possibility of human attention span. Um, Thoughts?
Glad
If
your
you
test
open,
went.
go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's really it.
Anna, go ahead, and then Caitlin.
Okay. So, Lee, if you start what was that? Religious retreat in Bali, please invite
Yeah.
me to teach yoga or
Okay.
dance or both.
Okay.
All right,
Dan.
let's do it.
Oh, that'd be good. We could have interpretive dance too. So we could have
Yeah.
interpretive. Okay, Torah interpretive dance. Caitlin.
Torah and dance. Yes, let's do it.
Well, no, I don't. I can't be riffing off of these things. I'll go back to work, I guess.
Okay.
That's just fun. Thank you for this class. Thank you.
Okay. Baruch Hashem, I'm healthy and all that, so I should be back tomorrow, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And next week the clocks are changing, so I'll send out a note about that as soon as I figure out what that means. And for those of you who are like far-fetched non-US places, we'll have to figure out how that works. Okay, have a beautiful day.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.
And bye-bye.
Bye.